Hey guys, this morning I forgot to tell you that I'm going to be at a meeting to learn a little bit of writing skills with the rest of the fifth grade team. The presentations for the charity that we're going to pick, we'll do that after recess, after lunch and recess. We'll do that first thing after recess. We'll do the presentations then. Okay? We're going to do a little more packs. Chapter 24 is a Peter chapter, and we know yesterday we learned that Vola arranged for her friend to drop him off a good distance, so he only has to walk about 40 miles or so. So that's where we left off in chapter 24. When Peter came into the kitchen, he found Vola already drinking coffee. She couldn't have slept any more than he had. He'd heard her leave for the barn in the middle of the night. She hadn't come back until nearly dawn. She raised her mug. "Breakfast before you go?" He shook his head. Vola nodded and took his pack from him. She stuffed a brown paper bag into it. Eat the hand sandwiches first. Ham won't keep. There's a jar of salve. Put it on twice a day. I filled your thermos, but you'll have to be on the lookout for springs. Keep that cask dry, though I mean it. Take a garbage bag around if it rains. She set the pack down, and Peter noticed. She had two shoes on. "Hey, you're wearing it." She lifted her overall cuff. "Condition number 1. "Wow," Peter managed after a minute. "Holy Diableman, where's the old one?" So we can infer what condition number 1 is, can't we? "Where's the old one?" Vola tipped her head to the armchair. I don't know what to do with it. Maybe I'll put it on the scarecrow." "Not on the scarecrow," Peter answered, instantly sure. He pointed to the fireplace. "The phoenix, remember? All his stuff burns in his nest." Vola sighed, but she followed him. Peter stirred the embers and added some kindling. Vola brought the wooden post over. It looked smaller somehow. The leather straps reminded Peter of the ones binding the marionettes, feet and hands. "You okay?" "I'm okay." Vola placed the wooden leg onto the flames, and both of them watched until it caught. "She's burning that wooden leg." "Yes." Vola walked away first. Peter noticed how smooth her gait was with the prosthesis, the better leg. "You wouldn't even guess." He pulled the screen over the fire. When she got home today, there'd be nothing but a pile of ashes. "Are you okay with the other 2 conditions?" he asked, trailing her to the kitchen. "We'll find out at the library, but I loaded the tractor already." "The tractor? How else are we going to cart 20 marionettes into town?" "Driving to the library on a tractor?" "We are driving to the library on a tractor, unless you've got a magic carpet you haven't told me about, and we have to leave soon to make that bus, so are you ready?" "Yeah, I've got everything I need." "Well, not quite, you don't." She reached behind the door and drew out something that surprised Peter so much he couldn't even respond. "You know what it is, right?" The baseball bat was turned perfectly smooth, the weight so solid and balanced that the world seemed to slow as he hefted it. "You made this?" "But I don't need." "I think you do. Maybe when you get where you're going, you'll figure out why." Peter ached to hand the bat back, but Vola had stayed up late last night, carving it for him. And she looked so proud. She made a bat for him. No bad Peter is going to get a bat now. She looked so proud. Maybe it was time to own one again. He balanced on his crutches and took a slow-motion swing. And the other bad memories swept him. His 7-year-old fury, a wildness he couldn't control. The exhilarating fright of that wildness. His mother's blue gazing globe, batted off its pedestal into a million shards. Her tears. "You've got to tame that temper. Don't be like him." "Like your father." "Don't be like him." Her bloodied fingers picking the blue glass daggers from her white roses. His shame as he watched her drive away. We know what's going to happen when she drives away, right? He feels guilty. He slid the bat into his pack, where it fit as though it had always had a place there. Treacherous. He hoisted the pack. Underneath was the newspaper clipping. He picked it up, and his eye caught the date. He crumpled to the chair, gut kicked. What? He knew. Peter shoved the clipping across the table. He knew! This is 12 days old. So my father knew this when we left Pax. It hurt to take a breath like knives to his lungs. When I asked to leave Pax on that old mill road because it would be safe, he knew. He knew war was going there. Peter's hands burned. He looked down. They were balled into tight fists. He forced them open. How could he have done that? Vola came over, eyeing him carefully. I'm sorry, that's a very bad thing. His jaw clenched. Could teeth shatter? He forced it open. How could anyone have done that? I know you're angry. Peter's fist had balled up again, the nails gouging his sore palms. He jammed them between his knees. No, I told you. I don't get angry. I'm not like him. I won't be like him. Vola sat down across from him. Oh, I see now. But I don't think that's going to work out. You are human, and humans feel anger. Not me. Too dangerous. Vola threw back her head and barked her startled laugh. Oh, let me tell you, feelings are all dangerous. Love, hope, hope. You talk about dangerous, eh? No, you can't avoid any of them. We all own a beast called anger. It can serve us. Many good things can come out of anger at bad things. Many unjust things are made just. But first, we all have to figure out how to civilize it. Peter felt his wiring begin to snap. Just one time. Could you not tell me I have to figure something out? Just once. Will it kill you to help? Come on, I'm leaving. You've got all this. He waved his hand up to the bulletin board. All this wisdom. Would it kill you to send me off with some advice? What? You want me to give you a philosophy bingo card for your trip? Like when you smell honey in the woods, run because the bear can't be far behind? Yeah, I guess, but for real. Well, for real, I don't have any magic truth to guide you. It is your trip, not mine. But now that you bring it up, I do have a card for you. She pulled one off the board and handed it over. It's blank. It is now, but a trip like this, you will find something to fill it with. A truth of your own. That you discover on your own. At that, Peter felt suddenly exhausted, as if he'd been holding himself rigid for years. He had been on his own for so long. Vola studied him. Oneness is always growing in the world, boy. Two, but not two. It's always there, connecting its roots, humming. I can't be part of it. That's the price I pay for taking myself away. But you can be. You can vibrate with its heartbeat. You may be on your own, but you won't be alone. What if I get lost? You will not get lost. I think maybe I already am. Vola reached across the table, cupped his head, and pressed. No, you are found. She got up and Peter felt her brush a kiss on his hair as she passed. She has changed so much. The tractor wasn't actually that uncomfortable, but it was slow and bumpy and loud. Too loud for them to talk easily, even though Peter was sitting right next to Vola. That was okay with him. He had a lot to think about. Even after they turned onto the smoother highway shoulder, Vola was quiet, and Peter figured she had things on her mind. But when she pointed at a hawk wheeling overhead, he remembered something he'd always wanted to ask. What is it with you and birds? The feathers. Vola patted the feathers on her rawhide necklace and smiled. T-pole. When I was born, I reminded my parents of a bird. My hair stuck up like feathers. I had a scrawny neck, and I squawked for food all the time. I'm part Creole, part Italian, and part a dozen other things. But all people who revered birds in their cultures, my parents realized, so they named me Vola. It means fly in Italian, but they call me T-pole, little chicken. My chickens grace me with feathers, and I wear them to remember that when I was born, someone saw me as a bird. That's all. Not much of a story. But it was a good story, Peter thought, and it explained the look she always got on her face when she lifted the rock, the bird. It would be the hardest for her to give away. I wonder if that's condition number 2, give away the marionettes. He looked behind him at the 4 crude pine crates The marionettes were packed in, strapped to the back. Peter hoped they didn't remind Vola of coffins. Her amazing puppets were going to live now. Really live. Out in the real world. Not just exist to perform as some kind of penance. And maybe Vola would too. But maybe that was too much to ask. He was still wondering about that when the tractor sputtered to a stop in the library parking lot, hunkering over 3 spaces. Wonder what they're doing at the library. Vola climbed down and hoisted one of the boxes. Peter followed her. But at the wide brick steps, he stopped and tapped Vola's shoulder. You know, he whispered, you have to be a little careful in there. Careful? About language, you know? Vola looked at him blankly. He was going to have to spell it out for her. It isn't the kind of place where people say diablement a lot. Oh, please, I think I know that, boy. Her tone was withering, but it held a hint of a grin. Peter opened the door and swept her through. The librarian looked like a tossed handful of jewels, bright coral scarf, gold silk blouse, sapphire blue skirt. She smiled as Vola came in and set her crate on a table. And when the top was lifted, her mouth fell into a perfect O. Peter remembered he'd been speechless, too, the first time he'd seen those puppets. He backed out the door to give Vola some privacy. So the librarian's pretty impressed by all these marionettes. The morning's clouds had lifted, and the sky was so bright that it hurt his eyes. The sound seemed brighter than usual, too. Or maybe it was just because things had been so quiet this past week. A barking dog, 2 women chatting, bike brakes squeaking, children shrieking in a playground beside the parking lot. He had missed these sounds. It's funny because we know there's a war about to break out, but this seems like normal life, right? So the war is not far, but normal life is not far either. That's what happens in war sometimes. He had missed the world. He wondered if Vola missed it all the time. He headed over to watch the little kids playing for a few minutes. Most of them were tearing around, jumping onto and off benches, and slapping the swings in some kind of made-up game. A frowning girl with a straw-colored ponytail was digging by herself in a sandbox, earnestly, moving shovelful after shovelful from one pile to another. Sitting on the sandbox corner looking bored with his head propped in a baseball glove was a boy in a faded red t-shirt. The shortstop from the ball practice. Remember him? Peter moved closer. Hey. The boy looked up, then stood as if readying for a fight. He nodded at Peter's crutches. I wondered why you didn't show. How'd you do? The shortstop scoffed. Like you don't know how you creamed us. He took the little girl's shovel and handed her a pink sweatshirt. Come on, let's go home. Wait. Peter felt a crazy rising panic. Maybe being a hermit for a week had made him weird already, but the boy was lifting his sister out of the sandbox and they were going to leave and he couldn't let that happen yet. Wait, you know when you're on the field and you know what you're supposed to do and you're ready? When the game's about to start and the glove turns into part of your hand and you know you're exactly where you should be? You know that feeling? Do you think that's peace? The boy scowled at Peter. He shook his head as if he wanted to shake off the whole encounter and then started walking away, pulling his sister by the hand. Peter could only watch as they left the playground, feeling that something valuable had slipped away. At the gate, though, the shortstop turned. He was pretty far away, but it looked like maybe he wasn't frowning anymore. He lifted a hand and shot 2 fingers up in a peace sign. Peter lifted his own fingers back. Inside, the librarian was unpacking the last crate. Half a dozen kids had materialized, and they gaped and grinned as she lifted out each marionette. Vola stood off to the side, watching. She turned to leave when she caught sight of Peter. Peter stabbed out a crutch to block her. So condition 2 is give the marionette to the librarian. Condition number 3. He asked with a glance back to the librarian. Vola gave him a look that was half irritation, half grudging defeat. She turned back to the librarian. I forgot to say, B, that I will come back once a week to teach the kids how to use them. B. Booker smiled, a slow smile that reminded Peter of melted caramel. That would be awfully nice. Yay. Vola set out for the door, but Peter blocked her path again. Vola threw up her palms. What now? Peter raised 2 fingers. What? Fine. She walked back to the table. Be twice a week. I will come twice a week, teach the kids. The librarian broke out into a wide grin. The children would love that. Be good to see you more too, Vola. Maybe we could go for that coffee afterwards. A little girl with a fountain of beaded pigtails tugged on Vola's overalls. She pointed to the elephant. How do you make him dance? She demanded. Peter held his breath. Hopefully she's good with kids. But instead of lecturing the girl about figuring things out for herself, Vola crouched down to study the elephant. Peter noticed that the movement was smoother with the prosthesis. She had a joint ankle. Now, such a simple thing to be able to flex. How much she had given up. What makes you think he wants to dance? Vola asked. Red toenails like mine. The little girl wiggled her toes in her sandals. Then her hand drifted up to stroke the feathers at Vola's neck. Vola startled at the touch, and Peter held his breath again, but she only reached out and patted the little girl's own necklace of yellow pop beads. Then she pointed at the clock over the desk, which read almost 11. I've got something important to do right now, but I will be back in half an hour. If you're still here, we will figure out how to make him dance. By the time they grabbed Peter's pack and crossed the street, the bus was already idling at the station. We know what's going to happen on that bus, right? While Vola went to the ticket counter, Peter made his way to the group waiting to board. A shiver of current scurried up his spine. It's the same thrill that juiced him every time an umpire called, "Play ball!" Vola handed Peter the ticket. Lying in his hand, it looked too small for the power it contained. I'm going to get there. I'm going to find him. Thank you. The bus door cranked open and Vola leaned in. She pointed a warning finger at the driver. Robert, this boy is family. He's been visiting and now he's going home. You see that he gets there safe and sound. She stepped away and an elderly couple began their shaky climb aboard. Peter shifted his backpack and crutches. He took a step toward the bus. Then he turned back. I'm family? That's the truest thing as I've ever known. Now get on that bus. The steps were tall, but Peter hoisted himself up with ease. He took a seat up front and gave Vola a thumbs up through the grimy glass. He was strong now. He was prepared. But when the air brakes hissed their release, he gripped the armrest. It was going to hurt a lot to watch her getting smaller and smaller. He's going to miss her. Vola motioned for him to slide the window open when the bus growled into gear. Boy, she called up as it lurched away from the curb. I'm going to leave the porch door open. I love Vola. I love Vola. Hope you enjoyed that chapter. It's a big chapter. Peter really changed Vola's life, didn't he? All right, good luck on your Ed puzzle assignment, and I will see you after specials.